And the single most main-decked March of the Machine spell at the Standard Pro Tour in Minneapolis was... Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. Today, we are going to look at the top 5 most main-decked spells at the Standard Pro Tour in Minneapolis. Because if the pros are playing them, I want to get in on that action, and there is nothing better than sharing the love. Let's get started with spell number 5, which is Sunfall. While it's at the bottom of this list, it's at the top of my personal tilt list. Not much feels worse than being one turn away from winning, only to get board wiped and have to face down an incubation token that is only strong because my position was strong just a second ago.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
There were 2 deck archetypes that predominantly ran Sunfall. The first is obvious, control decks. Azorius control decks, Jeskai control decks, and Domain control decks are the main culprits here. The second archetype was the 5-color ramp decks that just needed enough time before dropping their bombs. So what are the reasons these decks may run Sunfall rather than Depopulate or Farewell? Well, for starters, both of those spells saw plenty of play, oftentimes alongside Sunfall. But the upside of Sunfall versus Depopulate is the exiling as opposed to destroying. It is entirely possible a destroying board wipe made your opponent's position stronger than had you not played that card at all. Atraxa sends her regards. It has the edge on Farewell in some cases because the only meta artifacts you'd be exiling are the Bank Busters, which all the lists running Sunfall will also be running. Not to mention, most of the removal spells in these lists are enchantments, like Leyline Binding and Ossification, so cashing in on the exiling enchantment option comes far and few between. And hey, you get a cool incubation token. Number 4 is a super fun creature spell, Chrome Host Seed Shark, and we are going right back to those Jeskai and Domain control decks for this one. But before we get ahead of ourselves, the Chrome Host Seed Shark is the spiritual successor to the Shark Typhoon enchantment from Ikoria, Lair of Behemoths, and spiritual father of Sharknado 2, Electric Boogaloo. The Seed Shark will be firing off incubation tokens for every spell you cast, equal to the spell's mana value. For those unaware, incubation tokens are artifacts with X number of +1/+1 counters on them that can be flipped into a creature for 2 mana. So the plan is to get one onto the battlefield and stop your opponent from playing the game of Magic entirely with Make Disappears and Disruption Protocols and Brothershood Ends, and you get the idea. All the while you're piling up tokens, just waiting to be unleashed at your opponent. There is one list that I want to call out in particular, which was a Grixis Incubate list that paired the Chrome Host Seed Shark with Tezzeret, Betrayer of Flesh. This is really cool because you effectively get 1 free incubation flip every single turn, yours or your opponent's. Number 3 is Rona, Herald of Invasion, which became somewhat of a staple in Esper Legend decks, one of the most favored decks going into the tournament that did not reach top 8. I'm not mad about that either. Esper Legends has kicked my butt up and down Arena, so seeing that deck list get knocked down a peg is fine by me. Anyhow, Rona is a double-sided creature with a repeatable looting ability on the front on account of it getting untapped when the owner casts a legendary spell, which is all the time. 3 toughness as a 2-drop will also help alleviate some of that early pressure. On the flip side, she turns into Rona, Talarian Obliterator, which has a similar, albeit less consistent effect than the very troublesome Phyrexian Obliterator. Sometimes you'll get a swamp, and that's fine, I guess. But someday you just may get an Atali randomly cast for free from your opponent's hand, and if they don't scoop right away, you'll be well on your way to victory. Truth is that it's mostly a great way to allocate mana if you've got nothing to play, or want to fish some spells out of your opponent before committing too hard, as its 5/5 stat line puts a very quick timer on the game. Quick little break here to kindly ask you to subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content. Number 2 is that Elder Dino I just mentioned, Atali, Primal Conqueror. I think you all knew this was coming. His name has been up and down the Magic community since he was released, and not without good reason.
It's free real estate.
That good reason is free spells, and not just your own. There is a world where Atali enters the battlefield and brings Atraxa, Grand Unifier, and a Phyrexian Flesh Gorger as backup. That's a scoop if I've ever seen one, you know. The Dino saw play in Reanimator decks, which relies on the cruelty of Gix to bring back a target creature from your graveyard onto the battlefield. Ramp decks, which can cast it after rifling out lands out of the library with the Topiary Stomper and Invasion of Zendikar. And Breach decks that rely on Breach the Multiverse to mill each player 10 cards to pull out the very best creature or planeswalker from each graveyard and gently place them on your board. I think it's really cool to see a bunch of different ways to cast the spell brewed up to be competitive at the highest level. Did you know that there's a backside to Atali? And the single most main-decked March of the Machine spell at the Standard Pro Tour in Minneapolis was Chandras Beacon. Chandra was the light at the end of the tunnel, played at the top end of nearly every Rakdos and Grixis midrange deck. When entering the battlefield, Chandra can pose a lethal threat to the opponent, able to deal 5 damage with her ultimate ability. The plus abilities just may be better though. +2 for 2 mana is a drawn card with the Bankbuster, or a sneaky amount of extra damage through Light Up the Night, which was a sorcery found in the champion Nathan Stoyer's Rakdos midrange list. The most common use I saw in the games I watched was the +1 ability, fishing for Invoke Despair. If you hit the Invoke and can play it before the end of your next turn, you will have it copied through Chandra's passive, and that invokes unholy amounts of despair. I'm hurting just thinking about it. If you have it in your Breach deck though, be careful because the spell must be copied. And if you don't have enough cards in your library, you can deck out like Reed Duke did to get knocked out of the top 8 contention.
How many cards left in deck? Because Reed might have to draw 2 cards here.
Oh no. Oh no. Did this invoke just kill Reed Duke?
If it's exactly 1 card, you can't really see.
He has to win right now then. No, but if he draws and he doesn't have a library, he's dead.
Legend rule.
Yes.
Trigger it again. Okay.
Last card. And now the invoke will kill Reed. Reed's going to deck to this.
Yeah.
Unbelievable stuff here. David Olson.
Yep. I'll sacrifice Atraxa and take 4. And I deck myself, right? Yep.
And he decks himself.
Wow.
That is it. David Olson locking up a top 8 spot.
For real though, we root for Reed at this channel and wish him nothing but success. For more MTG Monkeys, please subscribe to the channel and like the video, and hey, take this banana. It's got potassium.